So, Phil, come on in. It's my honor now to introduce Phil to you.
Yes.
Hi, Phil. Welcome.
Good evening. How is everyone?
There's quite a few folks out there for you tonight,
Terrific.
and some may not know your background. So, your past life was in helping companies develop and launch new products as an engineer, I believe. And that has offered a natural path for you into photography, where similar technical and aesthetic elements must work together. And while Phil's always had an interest in photography, it wasn't until he left the workforce in 2019, and I like this part, and joined the play force, I have to use that one myself moving forward, that he accelerated and expanded his photography to a greater passion. Phil has now received over 100 awards in his 5 years with the New Haven Camera Club, as well as merit awards from various photography associations. And he has conducted numerous presentations for camera clubs and conferences. And his work has been displayed at the Small Stones Festival of the Arts in Grafton, Massachusetts, the Milford Arts Council in Connecticut, and Spectrum Art Gallery in Centerbrook, Connecticut as well. His judge's choice image of 5 inquisitive alpaca was awarded the cover photo of the Alpaca Owner's Guide. And I like that part. Believe it or not, there is a magazine for alpacas. So I've learned something new in this presentation already. Whether he's designing and crafting wood products, playing the drums with other musicians, or capturing and processing images from his camera, it's all simply about the drive to create. And photography for Phil has become an incredibly powerful medium for exploiting this passion. So Phil, we're so pleased to have you. Take it away. The audience is all yours.
Very good. Again, thank you, Steve, and thank you for having me here. This is really exciting for me. When I give this presentation to camera clubs, I always have to preface it by saying you're not going to hear any photographic terms at all. You're not going to hear about shutter speeds or ISO or focal lengths, apertures, nothing like that. The list goes on. And I say that because I want photographers to think about being creative and just having fun. So let me set the stage and get you properly prepared for this art lesson here. First, let me tell you where I am, because that's where I'd like you to be for the next 60 minutes or so. As Steve mentioned, I left the workforce about 5 years ago. I joined the play force. And as you might well imagine, being in the play force is everything it's cut out to be. You can do what you want, when you want, how you want to do it. You don't have anyone leaning over your shoulders telling you what to do and what not to do. So with this art lesson, I want you to join me and be a kid again for the next 60 minutes. And to do that, I'd like you to close your eyes and imagine you're walking into your kindergarten class. And I know it's probably half a century or more for most of us, but you can do it. So you're walking in your kindergarten class. You see that the teacher has set up easels for everyone. There's fresh paint in unopened jars. Brand new brushes and art accessories are spread out. And the teacher says, Philip, paint whatever you like. Use your brushes, use your accessories, use your fingers if you like. Do whatever you want. So imagine the excitement, the thrill, the joy, fresh paints at an empty campus. This little girl knows exactly what I'm talking about. She is immersed in her art. She's blocked out the outside world. So do you think you're going to go up to her and talk to her about complementary colors or blending methods? I don't think so. Do you think she cares about perspective or rules of thirds? I don't think so. She is immersed in her craft. She's shut out the outside world. For her, it's all about the thrill of discovery and the joy of creation. And that's where we need to be for the next 60 minutes. So let's explore. First, I wanted to go through a high level of the process that you're going to see for the next hour or so. We're going to pick a simple photo, and we're going to mirror the photo vertically and horizontally to create what I'm calling radial symmetry. We're going to merge and make a few duplicate layers. In this case, we're going to make a total of 4 layers. And we're going to get into Photoshop and start using some really amazing tools. The channel mixer, the transpose tool, and the liquefy tool. And we'll use those tools differently on each layer. And then we're going to blend some pairs together. And then we're going to blend these remaining pairs together to create what I call a tapestry, a master or a tapestry. And then from this tapestry, we're able to zoom in and extract out our images that we've created. So the first 3 steps are all about building up the image, and the next 3 steps are about blending the image. And this is where you become the artist. So when we're done, as you'll see, we'll have a very large tapestry to harvest images. These are all the Photoshop tools that we'll be using. The 6 steps here coincide with those that you just saw, and anything in bold indicates a Photoshop command. And so I've consolidated the 2 slides into one sheet. This is the one that Steve referenced. This is my cheat sheet. I kind of like working with one sheet whenever I'm working on anything printed out. I'm kind of old school. I want to print it out, have it next to my desktop or wherever I'm working. And so this is consolidated onto one sheet. Everything you need here, the process and the Photoshop tools on the bottom. Okay, so let's get into step 1. And the first step is just picking a simple photo. Now this photo here, probably the most boring photo you could come across. I'm in my backyard and I'm looking to photograph birds one day, and there are no birds in the backyard this day, and I'm not going in the house empty-handed. So the sprinkler's on, and I'm taking a picture of the sprinkler. Here's the sprinkler. We got some blurry shrubs in front, and this is going to be the starting image. So I'm in camera raw at this point, and as I move sliders left and right, you'll see the image slowly transforming. So first step that I go through, I just put this into Adobe Vivid, or I change the profile rather to Adobe Vivid. I reduce the highlights here. I accentuate the whites and blacks. You can start to see the image now just starting to pop a little bit here. I add dehaze a little bit, and of course, vibrance, why not? And again, what I'm trying to do there is just create something that's a good starting point. So we're into step 2 here. I'm going to mirror the photo to create radial symmetry. I'm going to go ahead and use the Control or Command J command to make 3 more layers. And I always start by, definitely need to unclick this lockbox. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do certain things to your background layer in here. So we've just created 3 more layers. And anytime you're going to mirror an image and actually increase it in size, you need to increase the canvas. And to do that, you go into Image, Canvas Size, and you will see a window pop up, and it's typically in, you're going to see it, the window, the width and the height and everything in inches. You're going to want to change that to %. We want the canvas to be twice as wide and twice as high. That's why you see the width 200 and 200. And for this particular image, I want the anchor point to be in the top right. What does that mean, the anchor point? That means if it was left in the middle, you would see that image there right smack in the middle of the canvas. Well, we obviously want to mirror this, so we have each one of these layers in each one of the quadrants here. So all 4 images now are stacked up in this top right quadrant. And the reason I picked this top right quadrant is because I visualized what this is going to look like when I'm done mirroring. And so I like what I see here, but I could have had other choices as well. And this is where where your position of where you put the anchor point makes a difference. So I could have put the anchor point in the top left. The symmetry would have looked like this. Could have been in the bottom left. Could have been in the bottom right. But clearly, or at least to me, putting it in the top right, you get this nice center emanating pattern. It's very pleasing, and it's something that we see in nature. It's something that we're very attracted to. We see it in flowers, in trees, in fireworks, and snowflakes. So I like to create radial symmetry. So now if we go back into Photoshop and we look at the 4 layers, they're all stacked up on top of each other. We need to start mirroring these now to create some radial symmetry. And the way to go about this is the Control or Command T. And when you do that, you'll see a box show up around your image and these little white squares. And there's many ways to flip things and move them. One way is simply to go up to the Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal command. So here it is here, Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal, because what I want to do is flip this one horizontally and then click and drag it over to the left quadrant. So I think you get the idea of how the mirroring works. So we've got 2 more layers buried under this top right one. We're going to go through similar commands. We may use the flip vertical command to flip it down to the lower part of the canvas. And we may wind up rotating another one, but I think you get the idea of how we go about creating radial symmetry, right? We increase the canvas and we just flip things around until we start getting this beautiful pattern that you're seeing here. The next step is to merge your layers. We're always trying to simplify. You don't want to build up too many layers. They get too confusing. So the easiest way to do this is simply to right-click and hit Merge Layers. So now all 4 of these layers have been merged into one. Then I'm going to take this layer. I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier, Command or Control J. I'm going to create 3 more layers. And if you think about what we've done here, we've taken the image and multiplied it by 4. Then we've taken the layer and multiplied it by 4. So we've increased the image or file size by a factor of 16. So we have completed our, what I'll call our build phase here. And now it's time to have some fun with Photoshop. So we're going to get in and apply some colors with this thing called the channel mixer. Now, let me back up for a minute here. So again, imagine you're in kindergarten again, right? And while you're painting, you have yellow paint on one brush and you have blue paint on the other brush, and you smear it on the canvas and all of a sudden green appears. So imagine the excitement. I mean, didn't even have green paint, but somehow I got green. Well, the same joy was aroused in me when I came across this channel mixer. And to be honest, I don't know what this does, and it really doesn't matter, because all we're trying to do here is generate unique colors for each layer. But let me show you how it works. If you go into Image, Adjustments, Channel Mixer, you're going to get a dialog box that looks like this. And of course, being an engineer, if I see things to slide around, I'm going to slide them around. So I move the red slider to the left, and magically I got this green color for my layer. So we've got one layer that's a nice color here. I went to the next layer and I moved the sliders to the right, and I got this beautiful orange color. I was happy. I went to the next layer and I was having trouble getting a different color to come up. And if you see this thing called the output channel, the normal default is red for this channel mixer. There's also green and blue in there. So I went into the output channel, I selected blue, moved sliders around again, as you could see, and I was able to get blue. Again, you know, if people are asking, well, Phil, how did you know how to do this? This is all playtime right here. This is all experimenting. What is going to get me something different? What is going to get me a different color here? I've also had people comment, well, why don't you just go into hue and saturation? And I found that this really does a better job. Okay, we're down to the 4th layer now, and I was having trouble getting a different color, so I changed it now to green, and I moved the green slider over. So we've got 4 layers now. They're all different colors, and we are on our way to start having fun. So we've got these 4 layers, and I want to pick pairs that are going to work together. So I'm going to take the red layer, and I'm going to move it up behind the green layer, because green and red are nice complementary colors. And I'm going to call these top two pair 1, and I'm going to call the bottom two pair 2. So we're selecting pairs for blending because we're trying to keep things simple, as I mentioned, and Photoshop seems to do a better job when you keep the blends to just 2 layers. So we're going to blend in pairs here. Okay, now here was another exciting moment. If you're a dabbler, an experimenter, and you're diving into Photoshop, seeing what's in there. This thing called the liquefy tool. If a magic wand ever existed, I think it would be found right here in this liquefy tool. This was an ooh, I like that moment. And by the way, whenever you hear yourself going, ooh, I like that, you're onto something good. So this was an ooh, I like that moment. And this is where we're going to turn this very rigid, structured, symmetric image that you see on the screen into something that's dynamic, something with our personal touch to it. So if you go to Filter, Liquefy, you're going to get a dialog box that looks like this. And the only thing you need to be concerned about in the dialog box is this thing called the size. When you bring your cursor down onto your screen, you'll see a circle appear. That's your brush size. So this is the brush size in pixels. So I like the size of the brush. It wasn't too big. It wasn't too small. And the way the liquefy tool works is you simply click, drag, and release. And so you can see these nice, beautiful little swirls that were added to the image. And you can see that we're starting to add some motion and dynamics to it. It's not as static and predictable. We'll go down to the next layer that we want to blend with it. Again, I went through the process of clicking and dragging. We got these nice little swirl marks going on in the image. And if you look at the screen on the left, so here's our 2 layers that we're working with. Okay, the bottom 2 are off for now. That's the eyeball is off, meaning they're not visible. We now want to transpose and blend these 2 layers. We want to blend the green and the red one here. But before you go and blend, we need to have the position of one different versus the other. So in this case, we're going to rotate the top layer. And to do that, we use the Control-T command. And again, you'll see the box show up around your image. And all I do, I actually like to use the Shift command as well, because if you use the Shift command and then go to rotate, it'll rotate in increments of 15 degrees. And 15 degrees is just fine. So if you look at my layers, my green layer is tilted 15 degrees to my red layer. I can now go in and blend these. So when you blend, right under here are, right buried under this dialog box, or drop-down menu rather, are these 4 layers. So the 4 layers reside right here, and right above it is the blend area where you can blend. Normally this is in, it'll just say normal, which means there's no blend there at all. But if you hit the drop-down arrow and you move your cursor down through, you will actually see the blends taking place in real time. And so I moved it down to what's called difference, and this is what I got. And so people will ask, well, Phil, what made you stop at difference? And it's whatever works for you visually. So I'm dropping it down. I'm looking for myself to say, ooh, I like that. Once I hear myself say that, I know I'm onto something good. So there's our blend right there of our first 2 layers. Okay. So if you like the blend, you can keep it. If you want to do a little more work to the blend, like I wanted to do here, you can go back into the channel mixer and you can actually change some colors as you're going. So I'm back in the channel mixer here. I've highlighted, I happen to be on the red layer here. And if you move the sliders around, you'll actually see the image changing, the color of the image changing. And I liked what I saw here. So I was able to pick up a little more blues. I was able to pick up, I guess, some yellows and oranges here. So that's the extra fine tuning I did at this step. And when I'm done, I'm going to take those 2 layers that I just blended. And as I mentioned before, we're going to call them pair 1. So even one pair of blended images will provide, plenty of rich images to harvest if you were to go and zoom in. But if you look at this image, clearly there's a lot of dead space here, top left and bottom right. And so I want to be able to fill that dead space with the other two layers that I've created. So now I'm working on the next two layers. Here's my blue layer. I chose to go in and change that brush size a little smaller. You can see the little swirl marks here. The brush strokes, the liquify tool. Again, I went into the next layer. This is our last layer. Did the same thing. I like the brush size. I went in and added some swirls here. And this is an amazing, this is like digital finger painting if you think about it. I just never cease to get amazed by the magic that's inside Photoshop. And I hope you folks always do as well, and don't take it for granted. It's incredible what's in there. So this is what it looks like now on my desktop. I've got this pair one, we've already blended, so I've shut it off. These are the next two layers that I'm working on right now. And you can see that I've already used the transpose tool to rotate these, and I've rotated them such that I'm hoping it's going to fill that void in the top left and the bottom right. So I'll go in and I'll blend these just like I did previously. And this is what it looks like over here. It looks pretty good. I used the difference mode here again because I liked what it looked like. And again, when you're done, you're going to merge these layers, and we're going to call these pair two. Okay, now we're getting close here. We've got our two layers. Pair one has been blended. Pair two has been blended. This is what it looks like. On the screen, of course, all you're going to see is pair one because that's the top layer. You can't see pair two. So we need to blend. And in this case, I use the light mode. So anytime you're blending, you're always highlighting the top layer. In this case, it's pair one, and because it's going to blend with the layer below it. So when I hit lighten, I had an ooh, I like that moment. And I had my what I'm going to call my final image here. So if you like the final image, you can keep it. But as I looked at this, I realized there was, some places in here that could probably use a little more of the liquify tool. So I went in with the liquify tool, and as you can see with some of these white ellipses, just added a little more personal touches in here. So remember, this is your personal touch with this liquify tool. This is what makes it your art here. And, there's really no such thing as wrong. If you think you've done something that doesn't quite look right, you can always go back and undo it. That's certainly something that you couldn't do back in kindergarten with your art. Okay, so the best way to visualize what you've created is to imagine yourself walking into an art gallery. And you're walking in, and there's art on both sides of the wall. And on the far side of the wall, dedicated to itself, is this very large piece of art that is just kind of demanding your attention. And here it is. And again, it's hard to imagine where we started. If you recall, we started with this very horrible looking water sprinkler and blurry hedges, and we were able to create this tapestry, this work of art here. Why don't we just pause for a moment and see if we have any questions that need answering?
Sure. We do have one question here in the Q&A section that says, can you use any photo or just a simple photo?
Excellent question. And what I have found is the simpler the image, the better it's going to come out. And the reason is, as you can imagine, because you're building this thing up so much and blending, it's going to get very muddy and what's the word for it? It's going to be almost too much to look at if you start with an image that's fairly complex. Good to go?
I think we're good.
Okay. So So I do want to pause here for just a moment and comment about this whole process that we're going through here, and think about in three simple words, and actually four, because we're photographers. You know, we have to capture an image first, and then we get in, we explore, we discover, create, and this process is the process that any artist goes through, no matter what you're doing. You know, it's only by exploring and discovering that we can create something. And you didn't see the explore part in my presentation here. All you saw were my discovery moments. Okay, I'm going to show you some explore portions later on. But you know, no matter what art you look at, whether it's music or whether it's woodworking, which I like, or products, you'll never see what artists go through, and that's the explore phase. And you know, we always see the end result, the create part. I mention this because the importance of exploring, you know, a lot of times you hear people say, well, I have a tough time creating. I have a tough time at creating. You just have to remember that everyone starts out in this explore mode where we're looking for things to work. And once things start clicking, all these discovery moments, they build up, and that's how we start creating things. So if you think about that little girl up front, you know, she's just exploring. She's having a ball exploring. And so we should, my message, I guess, is to really, you know, embrace the fact that you can explore and learn from what you're doing. And that'll take you into discovery and create. So I also should mention that that's not a linear process. What I just described, you don't get to the end and say, oh, I'm done. So this is an iterative process. So we created a tapestry here, but we're not done. I want to continue to explore. And so that's what we're going to do here. This is a huge image, 16,000 pixels by 11,000. It's a 900 megabyte file. If you were to print this out full size, you can see it'd be 55 by 36. So this is huge, and it kind of begs for the viewer to say, well, what's in here? And so that's what I did. I'm exploring at this point. I get on the terminal, I start zooming in, and I start seeing things that obviously I can't see from a distance or looking at the whole tapestry. Here, for example, zoomed in at 50%. This is what it looks like. Here's another section at 50%. I'm zoomed in a little more at 79%. And you can see that the image takes on a different look as you start to zoom in. Here's another section at 79%. And you can really wander around the tapestry and just pick out anything you like. And I'm going to show you how we go about and save these files in a moment. 127%. You know, you can keep zooming in and you just keep seeing art. (164%) I think was my limit here, and even at 164%, as in this image here, you still have an image that's about 3 megabytes in size, and you know, you can make a 4x6 print beautifully with this. Bottom left-hand corner, how do you go about saving images? I'm going to show you very quick. I'm going to list it very quickly, and then we're going to go through it. So you're going to zoom in on your screen, and you're going to crop. And then you're going to save the file. In this case, I use some kind of file name, maybe S, maybe for abstract. This one is 164 zoom level and 01. So use whatever file name you like that makes sense to you. You're going to undo the crop, and you're just going to repeat the process. And someone said, well, why do you have to undo the crop? Well, we just cropped out the entire image. We need to get it back, so we're going to uncrop it. Of course, that doesn't unsave what you just saved. You're just going to go through the process again and search around and crop more. So how do we go about cropping and saving? Easiest way is to use the Navigator tool. And the Navigator tool allows you to work in this small window And as you scroll up and down, you can zoom in and out, and you'll see the image on your screen, quickly zooming in and out. You can click and drag the red window anywhere you want, and you'll see that image on the screen. And then when you like an image, let's say we like this image, we want to save it, you hit the crop tool, and then you simply click and drag, and you perform the crop. You save it, you give it a name, as I mentioned, as we saw earlier. And then we undo the crop, and we just go and we just start going through the whole process again of searching again for more images. So here's just a dozen that I was able to extract out from the tapestry. I'm sure I could find another dozen because the tapestry is huge. Each one is a little different and unique, and these are to me, I like them so much. I like to have them on my desktop. So you can actually get prints of these, and they have these wonderful acrylic blocks that you can buy, very inexpensive. They have magnets in the corner, so you can sandwich the image inside. This is a 4x6 and a 5x7. And the neat thing here is it's reversible. So you get bored with the front image, you can flip it over. So these are just some ideas you can do with some of the art. Just adds a nice splash of color. I also use it on my phone. I have a clear cover on my phone, and I just go ahead and make prints of whatever I want, and I cut it out so it fits on the back of the phone, and I kind of have a unique looking back on my phone that looks like it's printed, but it's just a cheap little 10-cent photograph. Okay, so what would other photos look like? So we just used the sprinkler as an example, but what would some other photos look like? Let's go through some of those. So here's a photo of a butterfly, and you can see I went through the process of mirroring it here, and I went ahead and created 2 more layers. So again, there's no requirement to make 4 mirrored layers or 2 or 3. You can make however many you want. So this one, for example, only has a total of 3 layers. That's okay. I have 1 layer. You can see how the process is going to work here. I have 1 layer in green, 1 in yellow, and 1 in blue. And I've used the liquefy tool on each one of these. And I've oriented each layer so they're all different, all oriented differently with respect to each other. And this is what this blend would look like. Now, this gets very busy because the image is busy, but one of the things that you can probably pick out that is very concerning here are the edges of each one of these layers. You can see the edges very distinctly, and you didn't see that in the previous example because the edges were black. It was just, there was nothing there. But when you have color going to the edge, you're going to see this distinct little edge line, which is not good. So there's a couple of ways to address this. One way is simply to take the image, and with Control T, you can go ahead and just grab it and stretch it over the canvas like this. And you can see the problem that occurs here if my interest is in having people look at the butterfly. Well, I just took the butterfly and moved it so far to the edge you can't even see it. So this is not good. So a better way to actually fix visible borders is to go ahead and use the liquefy tool on the borders. So you can see around each one of these layers, I've applied that liquefy tool. And now when I go in and blend it, they're camouflaged. You're not seeing this sharp edge and the lines from each one of the layers. Again, the liquefy tool is just a magical thing in Photoshop. And once again, you can select internal images here. I don't know if you may need to have some special mushrooms to see these psychedelic butterflies here, but they're all different all different colors, very prismatic, clearly a very different look here. Here's another section. You can go in and crop, again, a different look. You can see the butterflies, but they're certainly very interesting looking at the least. Let's look at comparing different mirror positions. To back up for a minute and mention, remember how I was mentioning that you rarely see what an artist goes through when they're exploring. They're not going to show you all the dead ends. They're not going to show you all the failures, if you will. That the reason for exploring is to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So after I went through this process, and I realized, I really want to see these butterflies a little better. Instead of mirroring it the way I just did, I'm going to mirror it a little bit different. And in fact, I want the butterflies to be larger. So I'm going to start out with an image that's cropped versus the original photo. So now I'm starting out with a mirrored layer that looks like this. And when I go through the process of creating multiple layers and different colors, you can see now I have a completely different look for my blend here. So it's really interesting how putting the image, in this case, it's the butterfly, in a different position by mirroring it differently, that you get a completely different look. And again, you can go inside and pick these images out. I kind of liked this round that I went through because I'm able to really see these butterflies a little clearer. Again, you probably need some special mushrooms to see them clearly, but they're there. Psychedelic mushrooms. Here's another example of what you could go through. These are lobster trap, I guess you call them markers. And I went ahead and mirrored this one here. I created 2 more layers. Again, used the liquefy tool, rotated them relative to each other, and went ahead and blended. So, if you have people that are love nautical themes, using something from the sea, ocean, fishing, etc., can become a very interesting image. Here I use the exclusion blend mode. Again, why? You drop down through the choices, and wherever you hear yourself saying, "Oh, I like that," you just stop. So I liked stopping when I got to exclusion here. And you can pull out images here as well. And by the way, the images don't have to be perfectly oriented. You can go ahead and rotate your canvas and pull things out. So in this case, I had rotated this canvas so I could select this area. And now this is what it looks like here. So you get this nice little flowing going from bottom left to top right. And I think someone who knows nautical would look at this and go, "Wow, I can see that." Again, we're in the exploratory mode, and right, I'm always trying to think about, well, what could I do? What could I do? Well, as I'm looking at this, I'm realizing that this whole center portion here is really kind of boring. It's not really doing much for me. So I decided, I could use this as a picture frame. So I just grab another image, a nice nautical image I had, and you can use this, the abstract part that you just created as a picture frame for your art. Here's another example, a landscape. Again, I mirrored the landscape to look like this. I went through the channel mixer. We got some very bizarre colors here. And we used the liquefy tool. I went in and blended this. And, now we're starting to see an image that has a whole lot of texture here. Well, we had a lot of texture in the grass and the trees. The clouds add a nice little bit of softening here. So very interesting art based on what your original image is. I can zoom in on the tapestry and pull out any section I want. In this case, this is just, I love the colors. You can kind of see signs of grass here, signs of clouds. It's difficult for anyone to imagine where it came from, and it's a landscape that just got blended. Here's another section I liked. And in fact, I zoomed in even tighter. And again, you can go in and play. If you have there was an image I had of a scarecrow, and I went ahead and blended that in here to create another piece of art, if you will. And it would go under the, creative category if you're in a camera club. And this one did well in a camera club. So very interesting what you can go through. As you know, I'm into music. We passed one day I passed a barn, and the person had this incredible sculpture up on the barn. This is a 15-foot long guitar. This guy does wall sculpture. I passed the barn. I had to come back and take a picture of this. So I took a picture, and I used the body of the guitar as my original photo. And I went ahead and mirrored it, and you can see I went into the channel mixer, and it's been rotated counterclockwise. I took another mirrored image that was a little different. Instead of just having the body here being mirrored, I think I had the top portion of the guitar. So in this case, I'm mirroring two different portions of the original image. But again, I'm using the same principles. I'm rotating it. I'm transposing it rather. Adding the channel mixer to add different colors, which are going to really add to the how the image looks from an abstract standpoint, and then go ahead and blend them. And this one is actually over my shoulder here. I love this image so much. And again, because it's empty in the middle and not doing much, just took the original guitar and put it in here. And, imagine what this would look like if you have someone who's interested, with a saxophone. I think I'd love to try this with a saxophone. They just have great shapes and would lend itself so well to something like this. So this is a little bit outside the scope of what I wanted to present, but I just wanted to show you what can be done with fireworks. Everything I showed you in the presentation here was through Photoshop and tools in Photoshop. This particular photo here is fireworks, and I took it into another software, in this case Topaz. And again, the art that you can create with third-party software, any third-party software, is just amazing. And these are some examples here. Okay. Let's just summarize and see where we were. We had started with something simple here. We mirrored the photo. We added color to each one of the layers. We transposed them. We blended them. It's a fairly not complex, but a fairly involved process, but it's you have a cheat sheet for it. It's very straightforward. When you're done, the beauty is that you have a very large file, a tapestry that you can be harvesting images from. And I showed you about a dozen or so. You can actually get many more than a dozen. So with that, have fun with photography. It doesn't have to be technical. You can put your technical brain to the side and just sit down and enjoy yourself, and use the wonderful tools that are in Photoshop, exploring, discovering, and creating. And with that, I will hand it over to Steve.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. Boy, so creative and so unique. I'm sure many of us will jump at the chance to try some of the techniques you taught us tonight. And I don't know about magic mushrooms, but you certainly took me back to the 70s.
Okay, very good.
So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Steve Bruza for some final Q&A.
Okay, Phil, we've got about 10 questions here.
Okay, great.
He's out. It's really good stuff. Good question here. Do you have blend modes you tend to migrate to?
Yeah, the ones that you saw, exclusion and difference, for some reason, they just do a magical job of blending. When you get to the very end and you have your two final pairs, it's the lighten mode that I use all the time because you want to be able to see both blended pairs, and the lighten mode will do that. But for each pair, the difference mode and the exclusion just seem to do some really wild things.
All right. Another question here. Is it best to use photos that have distinct, I guess it's form or detail on the edge?
On the edge. I think it's best to actually have that inside. So, for example, the high contrast area in this photo is obviously the water spray, and the light little sprinkles against the dark background. You can kind of see in the image here. I think that adds a lot of interest. The other part that just seemed to add a lot of interest is what's ever blurry. So the shrubs that were blurred now become this very like cloud-like wispy. So you have a combination of high contrast and low contrast that I think work very well for this image.
Right, right. Another question here. Have you experimented with some of the other filters available in Photoshop, like distort, stylize, oil paint, etc.?
Yes, and by all means, there's twirl and there's all sorts of different tools in Photoshop, and you can go to town on them for sure. I just stuck with some very basic ones here, but yes, the idea is if you have good experience with using those tools, try them out. Absolutely.
Another question. Have you ever tried black and white?
I have not, and that would be interesting. I'd love to see an image if someone wants to create one and send it to me.
Good idea. Have you ever used smart objects?
Yes. So my understanding is smart objects you're able to go in and modify. Is that correct? Change them?
Right.
I haven't used them for this process, though. Again, that sounds interesting. It sounds like you're going to be able to make changes and see them in real time on the screen. Is that the reason for the question?
I assume.
Okay. No, great. That's great. That's
worth pursuing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is the great part of everyone's got their brain going here. So this is the explore part that I love. Everyone's got different ideas of what to explore.
Well, here's another one, that same mode. Could you use two different images?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't have an example to show you, but I do have some in my my folder for that I've done before. Absolutely. Anything goes here. There's no such thing as wrong. If you go through the process and you don't like what you see, then you try something different, but absolutely anything goes.
About the fireworks. So which topaz looks did you use for your fireworks art?
Okay. By the way, I love Topaz, and I know it's going away. This is Topaz Studio 2. And I used, if I can recollect, there's one called Chalk Pastel. There's another one called Bloom. I'll tell you what I'll do is I will send off to Steve the list of the ones that I like to use, and perhaps he could put that up on the website for people to share. I'll mention this. I do have a presentation on capturing fireworks and creating art from them. If you'd ever like to see that.
Nice, good. Another question. Besides keeping photos simple, any recommendations for type of photos to start experimenting with? I think we had that initially at the beginning, but
yeah. Again, if you looked at what worked on this image here, and I use this image as the example, the sprinkler, because I think when I got out of it, I got a lot more art out of it than I got out of the other images that I showed at the end of the presentation, which are more complex. So all I can say is start simple. Something with high contrast, a black background seems to work well, and then something wispy, and start with that.
And here's a great kind of a general question we can end with. What inspired you to start doing this, and how long have you been playing?
I've been playing. Well, I've been playing for 70 years. So I am still a kid. I'll be honest. I am still a kid. I enjoy music a lot. I'm in a band, and we experiment all the time with different music. I've had 40 years experience developing new products, and it's this whole product. It's creating something that doesn't exist is so exciting to me. It doesn't matter if it's woodwork. It doesn't matter if it's music, if it's art like this, or if it's making products that you see on the shelf. It's just so exciting to me to create something that doesn't exist. So it's just been in me all the time.
Okay, good questions. All right, we'll send it back to Steve now. Thank you.
Phil, once again, thank you so much for doing the presentation for us tonight.
Yes. Thank you. I do want to comment about, when Steve first got on and showed me what his group does, I was blown away. There's so many good things that he's doing to this organization is doing to help people in need. And so this Maryland food bank and giving to the food bank, I was behind this 100%. I'm just delighted to be a part of this. And thank you, Steve, for having me.
And thanks for that. And if you do send me that information, I'll be sure to include it in the email I send out to everybody. That will have the link to this video also. And I'm sure folks will want to watch the video. There's so much information you presented tonight. So thanks again, Phil. Stay healthy out there, and continued success to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks.
Take care.
We know what it takes to feed Maryland. It takes commitment. For over 4 decades, the Maryland Food Bank has been here, providing food and hope for millions of hungry Marylanders. It takes compassion, neighbors helping neighbors. Yet there's so much more we do. We're helping people get the healthy food and services they need while addressing the root causes of hunger, so every Marylander has the opportunity to thrive.